SAFM. Prime time all day long.
All right, let's focus on an aspect of the country's land reform and restitution process. As the country continues to grapple with how to make land reform more productive and sustainable, the Vumelana Advisory Fund, a non-profit that helps land reform beneficiaries use land effectively, says stronger governance within community property associations, the CPAs, is crucial to unlocking the full potential of restituted land. Despite the transfer of land ownership to communities, weak management structures, poor compliance and lack of institutional capacity continue to undermine progress, threatening the long-term success of land reform efforts. Let's speak to Peter Setou, who is Vumelana Advisory Fund CEO. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So the fact that you are even raising this issue around stronger governance for community property associations seems to me, Peter, to suggest that they are crucial in ensuring the success of land reform, land restitution processes. But is it your reading that at the moment they simply are not strong enough in terms of their governance?
Thank you, Yes, indeed. It is quite concerning that CPAs are not well capacitated to be able to manage the assets that belongs to the community, and we are talking about a lot of hectares that they've been entrusted with managing. I mean, if one looks at the annual report that was presented or submitted to Parliament fairly recently, it shows that 82% of about 1,700 CPAs fail to really submit your annual reports within prescribed time, including your key governance documents and returns. They fail to hold AGMs, etc. So this is a fundamental challenge that is facing the CPA, because if they really fail to comply with some basic prescripts around the Act, one wonders what is really happening on really managing the land, i.e. the assets that they are entrusted with.
So I don't imagine for a moment, Peter, that the CPAs are established and exist purely for compliance. Spell out for us what the role is that they are meant to be playing post-restitution, post-reform and settlement of communities.
Well, just to put it simply, CPAs are structures created by a Communal Property Association Act. Now, their main role really is to manage the land that has been restituted on behalf of their members. So the 1,700 hectares, the Communal Property Associations that I'm talking about here, are structures who have been empowered through legislation to hold restored land on behalf of their members. Now, they don't just hold this land. They are not just supposed to hold this land. They are supposed to make sure that this land benefits the entire, communities whom they represent. So that's essentially what the CPAs are supposed to do.
So what makes the environment difficult for them then, Peter? Is it that compliance and adherence to the laws and requirements and governance on the one side, but also managing various interests within the settled community and sometimes conflicts arise?
Well, CPAs face a myriad of challenges. Just to mention a few. Mm-hmm. They are under-resourced, primarily because the leadership is frequently not really capacitated to deal with what they are supposed to really manage. There are budget constraints, and when the land is actually transferred, the government doesn't necessarily capacitate CPAs with the resources that are required, one, to manage the land, two, to ensure that the land can be put to productive use, So very limited or little attention has been given to post-settlement support for CPAs. And this is where really the root cause of the problem. This is the root cause of the problem. Mm. Because simply reallocating land without post-settlement support is unlikely to achieve the desired impact.
Yeah.
And I think the situation goes beyond this. I mean, if you look at, just to paint a scenario, South Africa is one of the most urbanized countries in Africa, with just around 68% of its population living in urban areas. And this is projected to increase to around 80% by 2050, according to the United Nations. So this rapid migration of the population to urban centers will exert unprecedented pressure on social services in the cities and create unbalanced development. So the land reform program presents a unique opportunity to revitalize rural economies and to mitigate the migration of people from rural areas to cities in search of economic opportunities.
So lastly,
so there's
Peter,
a knock-on effect, if you like. So the land restitution and redistribution initiatives have the potential to drive rural economic development, to create jobs and create significant new opportunities for the rural economy communities like that we are seeing now. But to achieve that, we need to make sure that we capacitate these structures. We need to make sure that we provide post-settlement support.
Yeah, lastly, in fact, let me give you the opportunity to say more, because you do work in that space and you've worked with many, many CPAs. What do we need to do to make CPAs more effective in achieving the mandate that they are meant to be serving?
Well, from a compliance point of view, we need to make things a lot more easier for CPAs to comply. We should define and break down the regulations that they are supposed to comply with. We must keep it simple for the CPA to comply. We need to implement capacity building and institutional support to ensure good governance, transparency, and accountability. We need to create an accredited panel of advisors to assist them. Remember, these are frequently less sophisticated people in rural areas, and in most instances, fairly older people. So we must also encourage the youth to participate in the structures, because then they can bring much needed and fresh thinking within CPAs.
All right.
Also, we need to include, or rather introduce, measures like compliance notices, binding directives for non-compliant CPAs. There should be periodic inspections to verify the practices and implement corrective action and support. I think it should not be more of penalizing CPAs, but rather almost like a carrot and a stick, and incentivize CPAs to do more in the area of good governance.
All right.
Our own experience has actually shown that where CPAs are actually doing more in terms of ensuring compliance, reporting to their members, holding annual general meetings, producing annual financial statements, they are able to actually attract private investors who can actually invest in their land, in the restored land, and thus create much needed jobs. Vumelana has been facilitating partnerships between CPAs and private investors, and as part of this exercise, we have mobilized in excess of 1 billion rand in investment funds and putting in excess of 72,000 hectares of land to productive use and create in excess of 2,500 jobs. One could say maybe this is a drop in an ocean, but I believe that if we can replicate this, we can really make a dent to some of the challenges that are really impacting on the whole issue around job creation and create a sustainable livelihood.
All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. Peter Setou, Vumelana Advisory Fund CEO. Let's go to Dineo Motaung and then we'll come back to Zaikan in a moment.
Thank you very much, Tulas. A very good morning.